I'm just going to bring it up. So hopefully you can see my screen. तथापि वातमेधायो हय आत्मा चैवत्मना विभु आशामापाना इव भाति ब्रह्मवर्चस्य satamah. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I'm feeling incomplete, though I myself am fully equipped with everything required by the Vedas. Purport. Undoubtedly, Srila Vyasadeva was complete in all details of Vedic achievements. Purification of the living being submerged in matter is made possible by the prescribed activities in the Vedas. But the ultimate achievement is different. Unless it is attained, the living being, even though fully equipped, cannot be situated in the transcendently normal stage. Srila Vyasadeva appeared to have lost the clue and therefore felt dissatisfaction. I think what's important is in this particular section where we are, we look at some of the previous verses as well, so we get the context. Yesterday, His Grace Vrindavachan Prabhu covered this beautiful verse. I'll read the translation. I have under strict disciplinary vows unpretentiously worshipped the Vedas, the spiritual masters, and the altar of sacrifice. I have also abided by the rulings and have shown the import of disciplic succession through the explanation of Mahabharata, by which even women, Shudras, and other friends of the twice born can see the path of religion. So here you see, after having met with Narad Muni, Srila Vyasadeva is opening up his heart. And it is explained during this conversation by Vyasadeva, the feelings he was feeling, which were really coming from his heart because he was a self-realized soul, more than anyone else, because he himself is the incarnation, literary incarnation of Krishna, Srila Vyasadeva. Yet, in order to set the precedent, he showed by example that one has to accept a spiritual master even though one may be God. And we see that very much in the pastimes of Lord Krishna when he was in Gokul in Vrindavan. He went to study in Sandipani school. That was his teacher in Avanti. And he accepted Sandipani Muni as his spiritual master. Then we see when Lord Brahma, who appears at the lotus coming out of the navel of Lord Krishna, or Lord Vishnu, accepts Vishnu as his spiritual master. So this is our line actually, and all these personalities are setting the precedent for all of us to understand that without the acceptance of a bona fide spiritual master coming in the line of the disciplic succession, especially here relevant to the Gaudiya Brahma Madhav Sampradaya, where all our previous acharyas have accepted a spiritual master, including our own His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So here we see Vyasadeva is expressing his heart, and now he's opening up and sharing. So we'll discuss some key points from this purpose. Before that, we seek the blessings of our previous acharyas, so that we may say something for my own purification, and in the process of doing so, if something nice comes out, I'll consider that this particular session to be a success. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavanamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Lalitam Shri Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyat Deshatarine. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanubhute Devi Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhuve cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So let's look at the purport again. Undoubtedly, Srila Vyasadeva was complete in all the details of Vedic achievements. Purification of the living being submerged in the matter is made possible by the prescribed activities in the Vedas, but the ultimate achievement is different. Unless it is attained, the living being, even though fully equipped, cannot be situated in transcendently normal stage. Srila Vyasadeva appeared to have lost the clue and therefore felt dissatisfaction. Okay, let me just share some important key points on the purport and let's look at some of the verses. So Srila Prabhupada also makes a similar point in the purport in one of the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is 6th canto, 16th chapter, 29th verse in the story of the Chitraketu. So this is the verse. Thereafter, within a very few days, by the influence of the mantra that Chitraketu had practiced, his mind became increasingly enlightened in spiritual progress, and he attained shelter at the lotus feet of Anantadev. So, who recalls the beautiful story of Chitraketu Maharaj? Anybody here remembers the beautiful story of the Chitraketu Maharaj, 6th canto? In about 2.5 minutes, can give us a brief synopsis of that story so that we can then bring this particular verse in the context for the benefit of everyone. Anyone?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. We are losing you, Hema Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Oh, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
No. Okay. So Chitraketu Maharaj didn't have any children. He had many wives, but no children. So he really wanted children. So he begged Narad Muni, was it Narad Muni, to give him a boon to have a child.
Angira
And
Rishi and
Narad Muni, I think, said, Angira Rishi. And they said, are you sure you want a child? But yeah, he insisted that he wanted a child. So he was given the boon of having a child. When the child arrived, I think the child was called Harsha
Shoka,
Is
yes.
that right?
Yes.
Harsha Shoka. And I think one of the queens were jealous of the queen that got the child. Am I getting it confused with another story?
No, this is correct, Mataji. So the other,
So
he
they
had
killed.
a million wives.
Yeah,
All
they
the other
killed the
wives
child.
became envious of the one
Yes.
queen. Thank you,
Yeah, so
Hema
they
Mataji.
killed the child. They gave. Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead. You can conclude, Mataji.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. So then, because the child was then given poison, so the child died, and who was it? Chitraketu Maharaj insisted that Narad Muni or Angira Rishi brings the child back. And he says that's not possible. But anyway, eventually he agreed to bring the child back. When the child came back and came alive, he was very happy. Chitraketu Maharaj was extremely happy to see the child, but the child just looked at him and said, "Who are you? Are you who?" And he said, "I'm your father." He says, "Which janam were you my father? I don't know you." Kind of, he had moved on. So that's why Harshok. Is that the reason he was called Harshok?
That's right. Yeah. So when he asked for the benediction to
Sorry. Yeah.
Angira Rishi,
Yeah.
he was categorically told that I can bless you. However, please note that the child in your life is going to bring you, as much as he'll bring the happiness, he'll also bring lamentation. And Chitraketu Maharaj thought better to have a son than not to have. Something is better than nothing. So in that spirit, he accepted the benediction. And lo and behold, just after a few months, all the other queens became envious of this queen who gave the birth to Chitraketu Maharaj's son. They did a plot, and the son died, as Mataji said. Now the point is, after the son was revived for a short while, the son was a completely enlightened child who was passing by in this life. His life was very short, and he was just transiting to the spiritual world. And his sole purpose was to actually appear in the kingdom of such a saintly, well, you can say saintly, because what Chitraketu Maharaj has come to at this stage is actually very, very high advanced stage. So he appeared there and he enlightened his father. So he almost became the guru of his father. And his father then accepted the mantra which was given to him by Narad Muni during that dialogue, and he decided to perfect his life. And now Srila Prabhupada makes a very significant point, which is very much related to the purport we read and the verse we read from the Bhagavatam, from the first canto, 4th chapter, 30th verse, where Prabhupada writes in the purport to that verse that a devotee's ultimate achievement is to take shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord in any of the planets in spiritual sky. As a result of a rigid execution of devotional service, a devotee receives all material opulences if these are required. Otherwise, the devotee is not interested in the material opulences, nor does the Supreme Lord award them. When a devotee is actually engaged in devotional service of the Lord, his apparently material opulences are not material, they are spiritual. Some really interesting point Prabhupada is making. The first point Prabhupada is making here um, is that the devotees, although you seemingly you see them that they're there, they're walking the planet, but ultimately their aim or their ultimate achievement is to somehow or other surrender to the lotus feet of the Lord and go back to the spiritual world. And then Prabhupada goes on to bring to light few other points, like when a devotee is actually engaged in devotional service of the Lord, he may seem to have material opulence, but actually they are no longer material. Why? Because the devotee learns from the art of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna talks about Yukta Vairagya, and he applies everything in his life and uses everything, beautiful big house for inviting the devotees and inviting the advanced devotees for Krishna Katha, and for the congregational chanting of the holy names, and opening the house for the for the increase of the Sankirtan movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So then when you open your house in that way and engage every single brick of your house, every single fire is cooked for offering a sacrifice to the Lord, then you are living a life which is dedicated to Krishna. Then everything in your house, which may seemingly look material like any other house, the gas, the walls and everything, but it has become transcendental, it has become spiritual. This is the process. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that which is offered to me becomes spiritual, and and then when one partakes that remanence, then he's situated very rightly, because he's taking Krishna's remanence, the highest thing one can actually take. So here we see, now we will also look at an example of who are those devotees who are following this point about rigid execution of devotional service. So this is our Goswamis who are following that rigid process. And let's see what they are following. Let's read the Pranam Mantra English. Chaya Mataji, are you available to unmute yourself and read the translation of the Goswamis? If not, we can go to Bhagavati Mataji if you're available, Mataji.
Yes, I can.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the six Goswamis, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Gopala Bhatta Goswami, who cast off all aristocratic association and insignificant. To deliver poor, conditioned souls, they accepted loincloths and became men. I just have to enlarge it, sorry.
Mendicants,
Became
that's okay.
mendicants, but they were always merged in the ecstatic ocean of the gopis' love for Krishna, and they were always bathing repeatedly in the waves of that ocean. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. So this is the life of our Goswamis. When they moved in to Vrindavan, they did not look for orthopedic mattress. They did not look for air-conditioned room, because it gets very hot in the month of June and July. And how much hot? 33 degrees, by the way. Here, like us, they did not look for a nice palatable prasadam for their meal. They moved in, and they moved in from one tree to another tree to another tree as they lived their life in Vrindavan. So they are the correct example of that satisfaction which Srila Vyasadeva is referring to. Susukham, the process which is supposed to be joyfully performed and with no ulterior motive. So there's no better example than the Goswamis and everyone who's following the Goswamis headed by Srila Rupa Goswami. That is why we are sometimes called the Rupanugas. Actually, not sometimes. We should always be called the Rupanugas because we are following the Srila Rupa Goswami path. So here we see that their life was a life of a great example. Now, we may not be able to, and we should not imitate them. However, we should aspire for simple living and high thinking. You know, trying to really work with what we have as what is required for us to operate in this world. And also what is required to help expand the Sankirtan movement and engage those things, the paraphernalia which has been given to us by the Lord in His service. And in that state, we will be able to feel completeness. And the reason we do not feel complete is this very fact that we do not take the process of Krishna consciousness very rigidly and very, very sincerely. And today, if the time allows, what is the time now? You know, I was preparing for my session and I came across a beautiful class of His Grace Braj Bihari Prabhu. I was thinking of him today. And we will hear a snippet, and you will see such a spot-on relevant examples of how the world is operating on this principles of incompleteness and what all people are in countries are doing to fulfill that completeness, but still it's of no avail. So now let's see what the Goswamis were doing in Vrindavan. The 6 Goswamis, namely the Sri Sanatan Goswami, Rupa Goswami, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, and Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Gopala Bhatta Goswami are very expert in scrutinizingly studying the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. They are always absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. So what they were doing, they were always absorbed, thinking of how to do the best for the welfare of everybody by writing the literatures, by following the gopis, and by excavating those places of spiritual significance in Vrindavan. That was their mood. So anyone who's following the mood of the Goswamis, who are actually none other than the Brajavasis, because they are following the pure devotees, the gopis, and that's what they're doing in the spiritual world. See, this is the very interesting point here I want to make. The reason why the Gaudiya Madhav Sampradaya is so special is because of this reason. Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give us the highest. No other incarnation had actually appeared before Mahaprabhu who gave the highest. And what is the highest? Gopi, the service to the gopis. Gopi Pado Kamalara, Das Anu Das Anu Das. That is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give. And that is the mood Sri Sanatan Goswami, Rupa Goswami, and all the 6 Goswami imbibed at the early stage of their time with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the instructions they got, and that's what they were living. And that is why Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, they all had that mood because they're all Rupanugas. They're all trying to follow the Goswami. So if ever we feel down in our life, if ever we feel that our bhajan is not going, we should fall repeatedly at the lotus feet of the Goswamis and pray to them. Especially if you ever get a chance to go to Vrindavan, especially to the Radha Damodar temple, you should fall flat at the entrance of the temple, at the samadhi of Srila Rupa Goswami, which is right there, because that's what Prabhupada was doing. He was constantly praying that please protect me and please help me to fulfill the order of my divine spiritual master. And that then we see with the prayers, the Goswamis will reciprocate, and they reciprocated with Prabhupada. They're reciprocating with us. We just have to be sincere in our prayers, in our offering to the Goswamis. So these are some of the points I wanted to bring about, which Prabhupada shares in other places. So devotional service is not a stressful activity, but it's a joyful one. Susukham kartum avyayam. So Srila Prabhupada says that the 6 Goswamis saved the time in this way. And what did they do? Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Dena Mataliko. Be jolly in the service of Radha Krishna. Bhajanananda. Be happy and engage in devotional service. That should be the basis of jolliness. And this should be adjusted or minimized according to our real pleasure. And so our pleasure should be in Bhajanananda, in taking to the bhajan of Radha and Krishna under the shelter of our spiritual master and taking the shelter of Radha Krishna Padaravinda. So we really want to take the lotus feet shelter of our Goswamis. In this way, we have taken very serious job. In this life, we want to finish this material existence, Prabhupada is saying, for good. That should be the responsibility, that we are going to finish this material existence for good. No more coming. Taktava deham punarjanma neti mameti. So Arjuna, Krishna is telling in Arjuna in 4.9 Bhagavad Gita, if you take responsibility in that way, when everything will be adjusted. This is what Prabhupada is saying, that take responsibility. Like I hear from my spiritual master, he often says, for the sake of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when you take an extra responsibility on your shoulder, you may lose some sleep, you may lose some energy, but it is all going in the transcendental service of the Lord, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will empower you more and more. Just think, if you're trying to help Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in whatever limited capacity in your service, in helping him, spread the Krishna consciousness movement as much as possible, and also following it as much as possible to best of our ability, then Mahaprabhu will be very, very pleased. He will empower us more and more. He will provide us. Krishna says, whatever you lack, I will give you, and whatever you have, I will preserve that. This is a process of bhakti. It's so beautiful, actually. Maybe somebody else can read this paragraph. Who would like to read?
May I?
Yeah, go ahead, Mataji.
My Guru Maharaj, His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, used to say like that finish this business in this life, don't delay for the next life. He was telling also that, don't give me trouble again to come here to deliver you. That is the responsibility of spiritual master. Spiritual master's responsibility is to take the disciple to Krishna until he is able to help him, to help him, to help him. That is the verdict of the Shastras. Just like Bilva Mangal Thakur, his spiritual master delivered him, taking the shape of a prostitute.
Thank you.
We have.
Mataji, thank you. So here we see a very good example is being given by Prabhupada, taking his example of his spiritual master. Shruti Dharma Prabhu, our dear president at the Bhaktivedanta Manor, he used to say, just give this one life to Krishna, to Prabhupada, Yeah. And we see the same mood is there. Srila Prabhupada, he's imbibed the same mood as Prabhupada. And that's what he did. He dedicated his life, solely his life, for Krishna consciousness. And what a glorious departure. Prabhu went to the spiritual world without a shadow of doubt. The kind of life His Grace Shruti Dhamma Prabhu lived is exemplary. I have been reading this beautiful book written by His Holiness Swayam Bhagwan Keshav Maharaj about Janakinath Prabhu. I mean, what a book! Like to read about a Vaishnavas who really lived and died to live, as we say, is so nice. And there I'm reading that little exchange of how these Maharaj writes that he makes a similarity comparison between these two personalities, like Janakinath and Prabhu and Shruti Dharma Prabhu, because it was Janakinath Prabhu who first was diagnosed with cancer and later Shruti Prabhu, and they spent some time together. And look at both these personalities. They're really dedicated. They were happy. You could see that even when you talk about those who have seen Janakinath Prabhu, when I talk about his name, you'll see that the smile which Prabhu had, oceanic smile Prabhu had, even on his bed as he was leaving to the hospital, and 2 hours later he left his body. He was showing this to, at that time, then Sutapa Prabhu, who he was called, like a victory sign. And Maharaj writes so beautifully. Please read that book. When you read about Vaishnavas like this, you get such inspiration to become so enthusiastic and perform your devotional service. How many of you had a chance to start or finish reading it, or how many of you read it? Let me know in the chat box. It would be nice to see. And if you do not have this book, then don't walk or run to Bhaktivedanta Manor and get that book. Actually, it's only £5 donation, I believe. We have to take the responsibility. The first thing is that we have taken very, very responsible task to finish this so-called loading over this material nature. The material life means everyone is trying to load over the material nature, bhoga, and we cannot do that. That is not possible. Therefore, we are in the trouble, and our business is not to load it over. So if we want to achieve the state of satisfaction, then let's not entangle ourselves more and more in this material energy of the Lord. So before I go to the last announcement and remind everybody of the yajna we have going on, I have exactly 8 minutes, and the video is also 8 minutes. Let's watch Braj Bihari Prabhu directly rather than me repeating his words. Some of I did because I heard his class today. So here we are. Let's hear him. He's such a wonderful Vaishnava. The Sattva Gun is permeating all over him. When you hear him, he's always so nice. One second. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, let's hear him. Please try to pay full attention if you can.
Incompleteness is a reality. And that's what Srila Vyasadeva is also feeling. Like recently, our Honorable Prime Minister, he appointed new ministers and some new portfolios, and he changed the ministers in the government. So when I got the news, I was reflecting how last year, democracy, some of the most famous democracies in the world, Japan and United Kingdom, they have many ministries like India, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Education. But these two governments, Japan and United Kingdom, have officially appointed a minister for loneliness. I was amazed when I read. So they have officially a department, a ministry for loneliness. And the minister for loneliness, his job is to find out who all are lonely in the country and to help them. Now we may find it funny, but this only goes to prove that now slowly people are acknowledging, especially since the Chinese virus has attacked the planet, we see that the overall mental, emotional health of the planet has gone down. People are feeling lonely. And the incompleteness that people experience, that is at 3 different levels. At first level, people feel incomplete because they are not able to do what they want to do, or they are not able to be what they want to be. Like I know one person who always wanted to be an actor in the Bollywood from childhood. He's got very good acting skills. But today he's a grandfather. He's become old man, and he says he did engineering because his parents forced him to. So he says, next life I will be born as. So that incompleteness is there. He says, I wanted to act, but my parents are from a very conservative family. I was never allowed to act in school plays, in college. So that one incompleteness because I couldn't do what I wanted to do. At second level, there are people who are able to do what they want to do, but still they feel lonely because of lack of deep relationships. Like Marilyn Monroe, she is considered as one of the greatest stars in the Hollywood. When she was a young girl, she wanted to be an actor, and she became one. And she was considered as the greatest sex symbol, very popular. And she said, I'm unhappy because I'm a sex symbol, and symbol means an object. People look at me with a desire to enjoy. I want love. So even she was incomplete, and she committed suicide. So there many people go through midlife crisis. Sometimes even devotees go through midlife crisis because of lack of either not able to do what I want to do, or because of lack of fulfillment in relationships. So there is incompleteness at these 2 levels. Now there is incompleteness at the 3rd level, where people are able to do what they want to do. They also have deep, meaningful relationships. But yet, there is something that is lacking. His Grace Vrishabhanu Prabhu once was telling in the Bhagavatam class that he and his wife, Kirtida Mataji, they would go to Mahalakshmi temple every Friday for 25 years. Every Friday they would go. And on the 25th wedding anniversary, when they went, they prayed to Mahalakshmi ji that, we are coming to you every Friday, but still there is something incomplete. What is it? We have always asked you for so many things, but please, you now guide us what is best for us. And next day they were introduced to ISKCON, Krishna consciousness. And then their life became complete. So we are all Sat Chit Ananda, eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. And in this material world, it is incompatible. This is Asat. We are all looking for stability. Everybody wants stability. That is Sat. We want awareness. We want to know what's happening. We want clarity. and we also want unlimited happiness. But to combat this incompatible situation in this material world, where we feel incompleteness because of one of these three things, either we are not connected to Krishna, or we are also not happy doing what we are doing. So ultimately, we are all incomplete without Krishna, and that is the theme of this section of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So what we see here is Srila Vyasadeva is doing something very, very amazing. He is accepting that he is incomplete. So, one of the most powerful ways to combat the phenomenon of loneliness or incompleteness in our lives, which is the first step, is to embrace that pain. Of course, we want to take shelter of Krishna, but that shelter of Krishna is preceded by an acknowledgement and acceptance of our state. Without that, we will simply be in denial, and we will drown ourselves in the plethora of distractions that are available in the modern times. Because when we feel incomplete, that is an opportunity for growth. That is the time for the caterpillar to break through the cocoon and become a butterfly. That is actually the defining moment in our lives, when we can come to terms with how I am incomplete, or how I am not aligned to my own self. But unfortunately, what we do is we live in denial, and we stimulate ourselves. We stimulate ourselves with a barrage of information, social media, and as a result of this, we delay our self-realization. We delay that awakening moment, because we are unable to accept where we are. So the first principle of tackling this incompleteness is to accept. Acceptance is very, very important. His Grace Burijan Prabhu writes very beautifully in his Japa book that if we simply are attentive in our spiritual practices, if we listen to the holy name, one Mahamantra, that is the technique he offers. He says the result of attention in spiritual practice is not love of Krishna. We think, if I'm attentive in bhakti, I will get love of Krishna. He says, wait. You are attentive. Before you get love of Krishna, there is something that will happen. And that is, attention results in awareness. Awareness of the inadequacies. Awareness of our limitations. So awareness, he says like this, he says, the reward of sincerity is not love of Krishna. The reward of sincerity is humility. We come to terms with how far I am from Krishna. Right now I may say, I'm fallen, Prabhuji, I don't have love for Krishna, I'm so fallen. But if I'm really attentive in spiritual practices, then I'll actually become aware how far I am from Krishna. He quotes C.S. Lewis, was a very famous author in England. He says, C.S. Lewis says that humiliation comes before humility. So we have to go through purification, we have to go through awareness. And awareness is a gift that because of our practices, because we are attentive in our spiritual practices. But although awareness is a gift, it is acceptance, which is a choice we have. Acceptance is my choice. But if I live in denial, and if I can't make peace with myself,
Hare Krishna. So that was a snap shot of the wonderful class Braj Bihari Prabhu gave. So if you ever get an opportunity, you can just go onto YouTube and put SB 1.4.30 Braj Bihari, His Grace Braj Bihari Prabhu, and you'll be able to hear his whole class. But I found some of the points which Prabhu made, the lack of incompleteness, he explained that three different levels of relationship, then ultimately it's the lack of Krishna. So what Srila Vyasadeva was feeling was actually that very lack of Krishna. And if we add Krishna, then we will feel complete. Like for example, Hema Mataji, she said we are all zero, only when we add one Krishna, his name, Katha, only we have the value. Absolutely. Prabhupada used to give this example. Similarly, Prabhupada used to give an example. There is a screw. If you take it out of the machine, and try to make any head or tail of it, it won't have any use. But the same screw, when it is in the machine, it is utilized to the best of its perfection. Similarly, when we living entities who have fallen so far from the Lord with no desire or intention to try and align ourselves back into that same realm, we unfortunately not going to do any good for oneself. In fact, we're going to degrade ourselves, and at the same time, we're going to degrade everybody else who's around us, our family, our friends, everyone actually. Because a ripe mango or a nice mango, really helps. Everybody gets excited. It's the king of the fruits, right? But at the same time, if it is a mango which is defective, or it's not like defective is not the word, but not ideally good, then we are really struggling. We then we have an issue. So I thought that was very relevant what we heard from Brajbihari Prabhu, and you see what the countries are doing, right? They're hiring ministers of loneliness. England it was the second one to follow the league. And you can see there's so much, like I used to work, I'm going back into the care sector, and now you see so much of people are lonely. They're looking for someone to talk to. A lot of the residents who used to come to the care home where I used to serve, they were suffering with dementia, and when they come into the care home, their dementia will get better, or it never gets better, but it's contained for some amount of a time, as long as there are interaction and stimulation and activities which are carrying on, and mostly driven by the human aspect, not just without human. So that goes to shows that even at that level, at a gross level, you can feel the effect of loneliness, and what to speak of inside our heart, which is all the time quenching, looking for that, wanting to fulfill that thirst, for Krishna. So it's very imperative that we take these words of Srila Vyasadeva to our heart and do our best to fill up that complete, because we know it's Krishna. And then how do we fill up? We fill up by Krishna Katha. And how do, one may ask, where is the time? You fill up those gaps. Like my Guru Maharaj says that if you're going and standing in a queue to get onto a bus, take out your phone, and if it is safe to do so, read a chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Your mind will be completely illuminated. If you're going from one place to the another place and you have some time, read few verses of the Bhagavatam, hear a class of Srila Prabhupada. Let's try and make every possible opportunity and time we have, and dedicate it to Krishna consciousness. If not anything else, you can help distribute some Bhagavatam sets, which I repeatedly speak like a broken record. Now you must be thinking, Divyanam, you have nothing else to do. Every class you tell us about the Bhagavatam. Well, I can only beg all of you, because we are only few of us, myself, Vrindavan Chand Prabhu, Keshav Gokulanand Prabhu, and some other stalwart devotees like Bhagavati Mataji, Hema Mataji, Jai Shri Mataji, who are really, really, really trying their best to reach out to others and help us in distribution. So please help us so we can reach out to other people and make our lives successful. You see how happy Brajbihari Prabhu was when speaking. Actually, I reached out to him today. I'm waiting for his confirmation. I'm trying to get Brajbihari Prabhu into one of my retreats in Mayapur in February. Krishna willing, that was my desire. You can pray if it gets fulfilled, at least to the Mayapur part when we go in February. So what I was trying to come back is that that incompleteness through Krishna's holy name, his pastimes, and also by sharing Krishna consciousness with others. So I once again beg at your feet, all of your feet, that please come forward and help us in taking part in this wonderful initiative. Devotee can stay at mute, that would be very helpful. I'll mute them. So these are the few opportunities. As you know, we have been doing this program called Suswagatam Bhagavatam, going at homes and doing installation ceremony. I had the privilege to do 2 of them with my family over the last 2 weeks, and we distributed around 4 sets in 2 of them. And it was really nice. Families were happy. Bhagavatam was read. Kirtan was there. We had some brahmacharis in the second one. It's so joyful, to bring Bhagavatam to people's house. You see it for yourself. Chandra Chaitanya Prabhu and his good wife Mataji, they both came. It was a wonderful atmosphere. So just try to introduce. You can go to your friends and do this installation ceremony. If you want one of us to come, we will happily come. But this is what we should be doing. Prabhupada said every respectable person should have a set of Bhagavatam. How would that happen if all of us just sit down, Harikatha, and sit down and okay, I want to be perfect. That's all nice. but let's try and take this to as many homes as possible and to fulfill that desire of Prabhupada. We are really running short of time, and we are trying. That is what we can do. But so far, the results are, at least to what our expectation and goal was, way. We are not even 10% there yet in terms of our goal. But if each one of you, there are 49 of you, but each one of you try a little bit, by reaching out to others, by inviting them for this. We still are happy to do these weekly Zoom presentation. If you're able to reach out and get any confirmation, I circulated the flyer a few days ago. I can forward it again. You can let us know and we will do those sessions. Or else invite them to a temple on a Sunday, bring them for a visit if you can, and we have the table, we can talk to them. We are going to be launching a katha on 5th, 6th, and 7th. You may want to write down in your diary at Bhaktivedanta Manor. The great, His Grace Radhika Raman Prabhu has very kindly accepted our invitation from US. We are flying him down. Well, who are we to fly him down? He's flying him down on his own accord to give us his association. And what you will hear over those 3 days, your life will not be the same on the 8th of August. That's all I can say about that, after attending that. But the idea is that we will be begging all of you to at least invite one person when you come to the katha who has not heard of the Bhagavatam. That's what we will be requesting everybody, and that will allow you also to enter the katha, and you just bring one more person with you who has not heard of Bhagavatam. Yes, the idea is they should walk out of the Bhagavatam, and why not? Otherwise, how can we fulfill the desire of Srila Prabhupada? How can we do it? We are going to be doing for a family and children a event for the Avanti House parents. We will circulate the flyer to all of you. Please invite them, and you will hear a presentation. You'll hear a talk from Vrindavan Chand Prabhu in that. I will do the presentation as well. And let's just give people as much opportunities as possible of hearing Bhagavatam and welcoming Bhagavatam. So I'm sorry for going on as a broken record. I'll stop here. There are 5 minutes left for any comments, questions, or reflections. Surabhi Mataji is saying, on the topic of feeling incomplete and loneliness, this is one of the most relatable videos, objectively speaking. Oh, thank you, Mataji. Yeah, it is about that class. So I managed to, I got lucky, let me put it that way, when I was preparing my class. So I thought, and I found a shorter version of the 8 minutes, which I felt, rather than me trying to repeat it, it's best we directly hear from Brajabihari Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Any other comments? Otherwise we can bid farewell and see you all tomorrow with I think tomorrow we have Manu Prabhu. Last boarding call before the gate closes. Thank you, Sunny Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Please share link in the group. Prabhu, what link you would like the class, the video which I played with the Braj Bihari Prabhu, is that the link you would like to have? Yes. Okay. We'll do that, Prabhu. I will share that definitely. Okay. Well, Girish Prabhu and Shavani Mataji, now that I saw you here, maybe you can text me, Prabhu. We are about to launch the Srimad Bhagavatam gifting in India in many languages scheme in the next week or so, and I need help with that service to take care, like how you both did it wonderfully, just maintaining the spreadsheet of any orders, updating the details. So if you both are happy to carry on that service, would you please get in touch with me, Prabhu? Is that okay, Girish Prabhu and Shabani Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji, we will do. Girish Prabhu is out of town, so we will definitely do that, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. You see, without the home minister approval, nothing is possible. So Mataji was directly there, so it was a good timing to ask the question. Thank you, Shavani Mataji. Right. Well, thank you, devotees, once again for the recitation. Thank you, Vindadevi Mataji, for tuning in. Very grateful. Thank you, everybody else who's dedicating, well, all of you are dedicating your life to Prabhupada. Thank you, Sakshi Mataji. Thanks, everybody. Vancha kalpatarubhasya kripa sindhu.
Kripa sindhubhyo patitanam
pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo
namo
Namo
namaha.
Namaha.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna.
Srila
Prabhuji,
Prabhupada
Hare
ki
Krishna.
jai.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mataji. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. Thanks.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you, Jyoti Mataji, for your
Hare
services. Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.